I'm going to start off with just some headlines from around the world just from the last month, okay? I want to give us a flavor of what we're dealing with here. Here's just some headlines from 1 month, all right? Came through my computer and my different listservs. Israel faces worst water crisis in 80 years. Catastrophic water crisis hits Iraq. The worst drought in half a century has pushed Argentina to a state of emergency. China hit by historic water crisis. Jordan braces for historic drought. Nevada has been declared a natural disaster area because of severe drought. California is facing the worst drought in modern history. Kenya is to declare the national emergency over drought. In Spain, water is the new battleground as swaths of southeast Spain are turning into deserts. And just coming out of the World Economic Summit in Davos last month, the major statement coming out of there was that the world is headed toward, and I quote, water bankruptcy. I'm going to tell you that I think we are dealing here with the greatest ecological and human threat of our time. And you can say, well, are you competing with climate change? And I would say no. In fact, I think that the water crisis is the first and most horrible and real face of climate change. And in fact, I believe that our displacement and abuse of water is part of the story, not just a result of greenhouse gas-induced climate change, but actually is part of the cause of it. And we haven't understood it nearly enough, and we need to do that. So as a result, we're over-extracting rivers to death, as Peter Pierce would say, and this is for food production largely, or to move water into massive cities for our growing the thirst of these mega cities, and of course for flood irrigation for deserts where food should not be grown. We are also over-mining our aquifers terribly. The story here in Albuquerque is the story all over the world. We are now moving to aquifer groundwater mining, and I call it mining deliberately. It's not the sustainable use of groundwater, it's the mining of it till it's gone and then we move on. We also are paving over water retentive landscape at an incredible rate, not having the urban consciousness to do it, thinking about water the way we should. When I wrote my first book on water called Blue Gold 7 years ago, there were very few pipelines massively moving water long distances. This time when I wrote my new book, Blue Covenant, it was clear that we're laying this foundation for pipelines around the world to take water from where nature needs it. This is really important for you and your work to where we may want it, where it's convenient for it to be for us. And so what's happening is that we're displacing water massively and quickly from where it's needed for not only healthy ecosystems and for growing food for landscapes, but also for a healthy hydrologic cycle to function. And as well, of course, when we take down forests and trees, we now have quantified that we actually remove rainfall from land as well. So I want to put this as strongly as I can this morning, that we have polluted, mismanaged, and displaced water in our world as if there were no tomorrow, as if there is so much water, we can do whatever we want with it. And that has got to stop. It has got to stop, and it's got to stop really, really soon. That's the first sort of big statement I want to make this morning. The big dispute around, is water a commodity or is it a commons? Does it belong to all of us to be cared for all of us and for the future, or should it be put on the open market and let the market decide who's going to have allocation of water? And this is an extremely important issue for us to talk about here today. So what is the solution? I've worked on this for a long time now, and I've struggled through. I don't think there's any easy answer here, but let me tell you what I believe first, and that is we are going to come to what I'm talking about here by design or default. We're either going to do it thoughtfully ahead of time, anticipating the water crisis that's coming, or we're going to do it after the crisis. In Australia now, they are literally charging, in Perth, they're going to charge you per flush. That's how much the crisis has hit. My belief is that the best action we can take will be based on a series of principles. We need to have a debate about what those principles should be. From my perspective in the work I've done around the world, I deeply believe that we have to declare water to be a commons and a public trust. That does so that you say, well, who does water belong to? It doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs, you know, here in New Mexico, the right law would say it belongs to all New Mexicans. It belongs to the ecosystem, and it belongs to the future. We absolutely have to leave enough water in our ecosystems and our watersheds and our aquifers for the healthy functioning of the hydrologic cycle. Everything that Xeriscape is about learning to live with the nature the way it exists in our communities. If you come from, you know, England, where there's lots of rain, you can have all the roses you want. But if you come from here, you have to live in a different way with different vegetation. I would argue the same argument has to go for water. You cannot massively move water from one place to another and not expect it to have huge ramifications from the place from which it was taken. And it has to be a bedrock principle that nature put water where it belongs, or God put nature where it belongs, depending on your beliefs, and we have to work as much as we can around that reality. That means integrated watershed management, that means rainwater harvesting, that means watershed restoration, that means strict conservation in our homes, in our industry, with gray water and stormwater collection, and all the things that you in this room know about. Just in last thoughts here, I want to talk about what is happening around the world, because I'm actually filled with hope. I believe that although I started off with some pretty strong statements and statistics, I do believe that hope is a moral imperative, and that it is very important for us to know that we can turn this around. We know everything we need to know about what we need to do. What we're lacking is the political will at the top.